Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives? Hello and welcome to a very special minisode of So Are the Days of Our Lives? I am your host, Olivia Willis, and as a lot of you know, the soap opera world lost a legend recently with the passing of Drake Hoggeston, who played John Black, one of the most iconic characters on Days of Our Lives, for almost 40 years. So I wanted to take the opportunity this week to do a special episode on the character and backstory of John Black, who has been through it in his many years in Salem. As always with these minisodes, this is the shallowest of deep dives. There were several side stories and random plot twists that I don't get into, but hopefully I've been able to paint the broad strokes of John's arc. As always, I'm very grateful for the Days of Our Lives wiki and to soapsindepth.com for the history of John's activity that all happened before I started watching Days of Our Lives in 2020. Let's get into it because this story has everything. Mistaken identities, hashtag memory loss, love affairs, a bromance for the ages. We are really in for it with the John Black minisode. As all of you maybe could have guessed, the character John Black was reportedly conceived to be a super combo of Jason Bourne, James Bond, and Bruce Lee. So it's giving action star, man of mystery. He arrives on the scene in Salem in 1986 as a fully bandaged amnesiac with no clue to his identity other than being referred to as the Pawn by the Demera clan. With no other identifications, he chooses the name John Black as his new name, and he begins treatment with none other than Dr. Marlena Evans. And as I mentioned in my previous Marlena deep dive, while she was treating John, she found evidence to suggest he had undergone facial reconstructive surgery in his file, and she began to believe that John Black was actually her missing, presumed dead husband, Roman Brady, which was very convenient because John and Marlena had fallen in love during his treatment. So John happily assumes Roman's identity, takes up as Marlena's husband, and begins working for the Salem PD, which is what Roman used to do. Obviously, Marlena is eventually kidnapped, as she is wont to be, and she is presumed dead. So, quote-unquote, Roman, a.k.a. John, has to move on with his life, and he begins a relationship with a woman named Isabella Toscano. Soon after this relationship begins, not only does Marlena return from the dead, not dead, but so does the real Roman Brady. So John Black is discovered to just be a Demera henchman who has been brainwashed to think he was Roman Brady. So Marlena and the real Roman reunite, and John Black continues his engagement to Isabella. Throughout the years, John has a series of mistaken true identities, one being Forrest Alamein, another being Ryan Brady, but he continues living in Salem as John Black, starts a business called Basic Black, and he marries Isabella, and they have a son, Brady Black. But Isabella sadly dies of cancer not long after the birth, leaving John heartbroken. Although John Black is never out of sorts for long if Marlena is around, Marlena and John can no longer deny their love, and they begin a torrid affair while she's still married to Roman. Marlena ends up getting pregnant and gives birth to her and John's daughter, Belle. When Roman discovers that he is not Belle's father, he divorces Marlena, but because he feels guilty about the affair, John becomes a priest. Smart, solves every problem. And John eventually has to perform an exorcism on Marlena to free her from being possessed by the devil, as one often does with their exes. Apparently addicted to the chaos, John gets involved with Kristen Demera, of all people. John and Kristen decide to get married when they find out that Kristen's pregnant, but soon after she has a miscarriage, Kristen hatches a plan to steal her doppelganger Susan Banks's baby to raise with John, but John learns about this plan and breaks things off with Kristen. Thank goodness. John and Marlena finally get married in 1999, but the honeymoon period is brief because Stefano Demera gets to brainwashing. John is brainwashed into cheating on Marlena with Hope Brady. Then Marlena is brainwashed into becoming a serial killer, the Salem stalker. John always believes in Marlena's innocence, and he eventually helps prove that Marlena and all of the Salem stalker's victims are actually still alive and are just being held on a Demera island called Melazwen. Yes, that is New Salem spelled backwards. Melazwen, I think is how you pronounce that. Anyway, Stefano Demera continues wreaking havoc on John and Marlena throughout the years, eventually wiping John's memories and turning him into the Demera super soldier who commits killings and other crimes for the Demera family. Marlena is obviously fed up with the nonsense and divorces John, but he starts seeing a therapist to try to get his memories back so he can regain Marlena's love. The therapist ends up becoming obsessed with John and tries to kill Marlena, which, what can you say? The man has riz, I guess. However, the therapist ended up mistakenly poisoning John. He regains all of his memories, but is paralyzed from the attack. So Marlena remarries him, and the couple leaves Salem in 2009 to pursue treatment at a specialized clinic in Switzerland. Unable to stay away from Salem long, John returns to Salem with Marlena in 2011, and John's now an operative for the ISA, which is short for the International Security Alliance, not the International Spy Agency, which is what I thought for many years, plural. Things get a little wacky for John for a while. He's accused of embezzling. He discovers that he was mistakenly married to Hope Brady while he was brainwashed at one point. And then he thinks it's a good idea to try to seduce Kristen Demera, his ex, to get her to stop pursuing a relationship with his son, Brady, all while he's fully married to Marlena. Marlena, meanwhile, has had enough, and they break up, quote unquote, for good. John gets into more hot water with Brady in 2014 when he tries to blackmail Brady's new wife, Teresa Donovan, into breaking up with Brady. Teresa hits John in the head and sends him into a coma, but she then accuses Brady of actually being the one who attacked John, and John goes along with it for some reason. And if this isn't enough of a warning to stay out of your kids' relationships, I don't know what is. John leaves Salem for a while, but he returns in 2015, wanting to restore his relationships with Brady and with Marlena. He's approached by the ISA to return to work for them, which he wants to do so that he can use the ISA resources for possible discovery into his true identity. But Marlena doesn't want him to go because she still loves him and doesn't want him to leave on these long undercover missions. John at this point also discovers that he has another son named Paul Narita from a previous relationship. Paul is a gay baseball player, and John becomes the world's sweetest dad ally, hosting a rager of a pride party, which you can see in a early 2020s episode of Beyond Salem, streaming exclusively on Peacock. In 2016, John does finally learn about his mysterious origins. It turns out that he was born John Robichaux to Timothy and Maud Robichaux, who were farmers in Louisiana. I also just think it's very ironic that his birth name is also John. I get that it's a common name, but what are the odds? So Timothy, his father, died in the Korean War, and his mother, Maud, put baby John up for adoption. He was brought in by the wealthy Alamein family and was raised as Forrest Alamein in, you guessed it, Alamania, which is a fictional country in the world of Days of Our Lives, somewhere in Europe. But Timothy Robichaux actually did not die in the war. He deserted and moved to China, where he developed some unique ideals and changed his name to Yo Ling and established the, quote, Phantom Alliance to take down Western powers and start a world revolution. You hate to see a white man named Yo Ling. The Phantom Alliance found John, aka Forrest Alamein, and bought him back from the Alamains so that they could brainwash and train him to be a top assassin in their ranks. One of Yo Ling's associates eventually trades John to Stefano Demera, providing him with this precious pawn, which is eventually what brings him to Salem, takes him to his bout of amnesia where Marlena treats him, and now we're back at the beginning of the story. That was a lot to take in. So to pivot to a more heartwarming facet of John's backstory, he has a bromance for the ages with Steve Johnson. They are absolute besties, and I'm obsessed with them. John and Steve start a private investigation firm called Black Patch. Get it? Because his last name is Black and Steve has an eye patch. It writes itself, guys. John stays very busy over the years with a series of missions between the ISA and Black Patch. And they say millennials invented the gig economy. I mean, John is really working job to job. John and Marlena finally remarry in 2018, despite Marlena getting shot during the ceremony. But in the following years, John suffers from a brain aneurysm, a side effect of which includes outbursts of rage and violence, which thankfully are eventually treated. John once again has to save his beloved Marlena after the evil Orpheus killed her with a poisonous orchid. As he traveled the world searching for vengeance, he thankfully discovered that Marlena was not dead, just being held in a cryogenic chamber. Thank goodness. And to finally put the identity mysteries to bed, in 2023, John learns that his biological father, Timothy Robichaux, is actually alive and in Salem and being played by the iconic Dick Van Dyke. It turns out Yo Ling had been a fraud all along. Shocking no one. The white man named Yo Ling was a fraud the entire time. Now, that actually takes us kind of to where I am in my watching of Days of Our Lives, because I am truly so woefully behind. I can't get into it. I'm like a year behind the currently airing episodes. So I didn't want to get into too much detail of what John is going to get up to in the episodes I'm getting ready to watch, but I did take a little peek. And just to tease that out, let's just say John's days as the pawn assassin are not behind him, not by a long shot. Very sadly, Drake Hoggeston, who played John Black for 38 years, passed away in September 2024 after battling pancreatic cancer. Although the last episode he filmed has already aired, I'm sure there will be a very special tribute episode to Mr. Hoggeston in the season to come. In an interview with Access Hollywood, his longtime screen partner, Deidre Hall, who plays Marlena Evans, said this of her on-screen partner, quote, "For nearly 4 decades, Marlena Evans and I have loved the same man. Marlena's John is an iconic hero, unfailingly rescuing her from all manner of villains. My acting partner was incredibly professional from the moment he entered the studio, flawless in his preparation, and ready for any eventuality in any scene. He was gracious and kind to everyone, from the executive staff to the night crew. Drake loved what he did and adored and respected everyone with whom he did it." End quote. Oh, I just love that. It sounds like, to work with someone for truly almost 40 years, you hope that it's somebody you can really get along with. And from what people in the cast have been saying over the weeks since he passed away, it sounds like Drake Hoggeston was truly a delight to share scenes with. And I think that's really something to be admired in this world. So thank you for listening, coming on the journey of John Black through the years on Days of Our Lives. I'm really excited to see what's coming up for him in the next year, and I'm really excited to see what the show does in tribute to him moving forward. Oh my gosh, but I know I'm going to cry. Oh, I can't handle it. I will be back with another full recap episode of Days of Our Lives in 2 weeks. In the meantime, follow me on Instagram at So Are the Days Podcast. And with that, I'll just say, stay classy, Salem.